Hey, what's up everybody? My name's Vince. I work as a data scientist, and today we're going to talk about getting started with R and RStudio. So I know there's a lot out there in terms of getting started with data science, and so many articles and questions are around what language should I learn, Python or R? And if you're serious about becoming a data scientist, the answer is you're going to use both. But if you're just getting started, then it's better to just pick one, use it, become proficient with it so you can learn the principles and the techniques that you'll end up using when you're dealing with data, and then you'll just realize that most of us are just really good at Googling. And once we know what we need to do, it doesn't matter which language we're using, we're just gonna try and figure it out. But I happen to like R. I think it's pretty useful, and I don't know where I was going with that. I like it. I'm gonna teach it. So today we're gonna talk about how to download and install it. We're gonna talk about the difference between R and RStudio, and then I'm gonna show you some super basic commands about how to get familiar with your data. So let's jump right in. And the first thing I wanna talk about is, well, what even is R? Great question, glad you asked. It's a statistical programming language that was developed by statisticians specifically for doing statistics and dealing with data. I love to call it the non-programmer's programming language because it's a little weird from a computer science perspective. Lists start at 1, you assign things with these weird arrows. It's just a little different. So if you're completely new to programming, this really doesn't mean much to you, but if you're an experienced programmer, or at least have taken a few classes before, this might be a little weird, but I promise you, R has its benefits, and I promise I'll try my best to show you why. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is download the language. To do that, we can go to a website called rproject.org.
Click on this link that says download R, and it's gonna ask us to choose a CRAN mirror.
CRAN stands for Comprehensive R Archiving Network, which really just means that they replicate the language and all the packages available for the language on a bunch of different servers across the world. So it's supported by the whole R user community, which is actually really cool, but they just want us to pick a location to download it from that's relatively close to us, I think. I don't really know. I don't even think it really matters either which mirror you choose, but I happen to be on the east coast of the US, closer to Pittsburgh, so I'm gonna choose
CMU. Carnegie Mellon University has a CRAN mirror. And I'm on Mac, so I'm gonna download R from Mac OS X, download this PKG file. I'm gonna save it to my applications folder, hit save, and that downloaded pretty quickly, and we can open that up. And click through the installer. Hope I'm not signing my life away, and away we go. Great, installation successful.
So we're gonna close that. I'm gonna show you what this looks like right off the bat.
I'm doing command space on my Mac. If you type r.app, it'll open the R console.
So now we have the language installed on our machine. But the reason RStudio is a thing is it's a text editor specifically for R.
They made it because this console isn't exactly the most aesthetically pleasing interface to do your programming.
It works just fine, but there are a lot of benefits to using RStudio that you don't get from just using the console. We're gonna open up a new tab.
If you Google RStudio, it should take you to their website, which is a lot prettier than the R project's website. And we wanna download it, the free desktop version. Everything is free and open source. And I'm on Mac, so it's gonna download a DMG file, and it finished. And as is commonplace for a lot of Mac apps, you have to take the application and then drag it into the applications folder. Then we can go ahead and open that up. RStudio is an app download from, yes, I wanna download it. Okay, so RStudio is now open, and we're gonna pause. Welcome to the RStudio interface. At the top, we have our toolbar for doing various things that oftentimes have keyboard shortcuts, so I have to admit I don't really use this top part very often. On the top left, we have our scripting and viewing plane. This is where you'll do all of your editing of code files, and if you choose to view data tables or other types of objects, they'll show up in this pane as well. On the bottom left is the R console. You can think of this as your sandbox for testing out code. All of the things you try out down there that ultimately end up working will be things you'll want to save up in your scripting pane. On the bottom right, we have a number of different panes to choose from, but most of the time, your plots will show up here and any of the help pages you want to look at, and we'll get into that later. And last but not least, one of the coolest things in my opinion about RStudio is this environment pane up in the top right. It'll show you all of the objects, all of the variables, all of the data tables, anything that you have created or assigned during your R session, even functions, but that might be a little too far ahead. They will show up here, and you will know everything that you have available to you at any given time. And it even displays some super basic information about them, just so you can understand like how big your data data is.
And I think that's really cool. Doesn't happen in a whole lot of other editors, and I find it super useful for learning data science. So now I'm going to show you just a few commands that can help you get familiar with your data. And R has a few built-in data sets that come with the language. And so one of them is called MT-cars, MT standing for motor trends. It's a collection of data that
was extracted from the 1974 Motor Trend US magazine and comprises fuel consumption and 10 aspects of automobile design.
And the way you read that in the R language is by using this function called data.
So I already have it written up here in the top left. And what you can do is you can put your cursor on the line and hold Command on Mac, Control on Windows, and hit Enter to run that command in your console down below. And it'll even automatically skip to the next line, which is a pretty cool little feature. And you'll see it shows up in the top right in your global environment.
But it has this like promise thing around it. Don't worry about that. It just means that like it'll figure things out when you actually want to do something to it, which is what we're gonna do here.
So there's this other function called nrow. Basically means number of rows. So I'm gonna do the same thing with hold Command. I'm gonna hit Enter. We're gonna run through and see in the console it shows us that there are 32 rows. And now that we've actually performed an operation on the MT-cars data set, the information about it shows up in the top right in the environment pane.
So cool. We know that there are 32 rows, and the global environment is even telling us that there are 11 variables. So there are like 11 columns in this data table. Sweet. But what if I wanted to know a little bit more about those columns? Well, there's this other command called str, which I'm pretty sure stands for structure. I think it's one of the most useful commands in the R language altogether.
So I'm gonna run this one, and in the console you can see that it shows every single column, shows every single column's name. It shows its type, which is numeric for every single one. And it even gives us a preview of some of the values in each column.
So pretty much anytime I get a new data set, like the str command is probably one of the first things I do because it bundles so many different commands into one. So that's it for the basics of R and RStudio. So if you found this useful to you, please drop a like. And if you're interested in learning like practical data science things, feel free to subscribe. I'm gonna try and put out more videos like this where I teach like really sort of like practical things, not so much theory. I just wanna do data science with everybody. But other than that, your subscriptions give me the shameless validation I need to keep doing this on top of my 9 to 5. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.